You're already behind. You know it. And every time you see another Start Investing at 22 video, it feels like someone's rubbing it in. But here's what nobody is telling you. Being behind isn't a personal failure. It's statistically normal. And the math of catching up is completely solvable once you know which levers to pull. This video is for the 40-year-old who just opened their first brokerage account, the 50-year-old who's been too embarrassed to ask where to start, the person who Googled, "Is it too late to retire at midnight?" and didn't love what they found. I've gone through the actual data, Morningstar, the Federal Reserve, AARP, the IRS tax code, and I'm going to show you the exact playbook that most financial advisors never explain. 10 specific strategies, real numbers, and a step-by-step order of operations you can start this week. Here's what we're covering. Why the gap isn't your fault, the most valuable 4-year window in the entire U.S. tax code, the broke investor's secret weapon, a hidden retirement account most people ignore, and the exact order to stack your investments in 2026. Let's go. First, let's talk about the number that should make you feel better immediately. The median 45 to 54-year-old American has $87,000 saved for retirement. The benchmark on a $75,000 salary at that age is $450,000. That's a gap of over $360,000. And as of right now, 29% of American non-retirees have zero retirement savings. 1 in 5 adults over 50 have nothing at all. Read that again. 1 in 5 people over 50 have nothing. So if you're watching this with a few $1,000s or even nothing, you are not the exception. You are statistically average. This is not a character flaw. It's a math problem, and math problems have solutions. But here's where it gets interesting, because the solution most people reach for first is actually the wrong one. Most people think the answer is to find some high-risk investment that'll 10 times their money fast. Crypto, penny stocks, whatever's trending. That's the panic move. And it almost always makes things worse. The actual answer is understanding which levers move the most money in the least time. And there's one lever almost nobody talks about. It's called the super catch-up, and it might be the most valuable thing in this entire video. Under a law called Secure 2.0, workers ages 60 to 63 can contribute up to $35,750 to their 401k in 2026. That's the standard $24,500 limit plus an $11,250 super catch-up on top. Compare that to someone age 50 to 59 who gets a $8,000 catch-up for a total of $32,500. The 60 to 63 window is uniquely powerful, and it disappears the moment you turn 64. Here's the math if you start at zero at age 60 and max this out every year. Year 1, you put in $35,750. At 8% return, that becomes $38,610. By year 2, $80,449. Year 3, $125,695. Year 4, $174,540. Then at 64, you drop back to the standard limit of $32,500. And by year 5, you're sitting at $220,903, $220,000 in 5 years, from zero, using nothing but legal contribution limits that already exist. That's the super catch-up, 4 years, ages 60 to 63. Write that down. But what if you're 40 or 45 and that window is still a decade away? That's where the next piece of math comes in, and it's going to reframe everything you think you know about being a late starter. Morningstar ran the numbers on what it takes to hit $1 million by age 65 at a 7% real return. If you start at 25, you need $405 a month. If you start at 45, you need $1,970 a month. That sounds brutal. But here's the part nobody shows you. At 45, you're contributing about $473,000 of your own money over those 20 years. The market contributes $527,000. The market is still doing more than half the work. You're not fighting compounding, you're funding a shorter version of it. The math still works, it just requires more fuel from you up front. And here's the table that makes this real. Starting at zero at age 40 with a 7% return. Invest $500 a month and you have $393,000 by 65. Invest $1,000 a month and you have $786,000. Invest $2,000 a month and you have $1.57 million. Not starting at 22 is a setback. It is not a death sentence. That's important. But if you're thinking, I can't do $2,000 a month, I'm basically broke right now, I need you to hear this next part very carefully. Here is the broke investor's secret. And it's backed by math that most people find genuinely shocking. Investing $50 a week for 10 years produces more money than investing $100 a week for 5 years on the exact same total contribution, by over $10,000. Think about that. Half the weekly amount, twice the time, same total dollars in. and you come out ahead because time beats amount every single time. So if you're 40 and you can only scrape together $50 a week right now, that is still worth doing. A 40-year-old putting in $50 a week for 25 years at 7% ends up with around $175,000. A 45-year-old putting in $200 a week for 15 years ends up with $325,000. But they contributed more than double. The 40-year-old who started earlier with less still built real wealth. Starting matters more than the amount. Start now, increase later. Now here's the thing about your 40s and 50s that nobody maps out properly. These are your peak earning years. The median salary for ages 35 to 44 is $72,020. For ages 45 to 54, it's $71,604. Those are the highest earning years for most Americans. And for many people in this bracket, major expenses like childcare have dropped off. The kids are older, the cars are paid down. This is structurally the best decade to save aggressively, and most people are spending it the same way they spent their 30s. Here's what a 50-year-old at median income looks like if they flip the script. Take $71,604 a year, switch to a 40% savings rate. That's $28,640 going into investments annually. At 8% over 15 years, that becomes approximately $777,000. No side hustle, no inheritance, no lottery win. Just the income most 50-year-olds already have, redirected. The money is there, it's just not being pointed at the right target. Now, before I show you the exact account stack and the order to invest in, I want to make sure you know about one account that almost nobody uses correctly. The HSA, Health Savings Account. If you're on a high-deductible health plan, you can contribute $4,300 a year to an HSA in 2026. For a family, that's $8,750. And this account is the only one in the entire U.S. tax code with triple tax advantages. Your contribution reduces your taxable income today. The growth is tax-free, and withdrawals for medical expenses are completely tax-free. After 65, you can withdraw for anything, just like a traditional IRA. Here's why this matters specifically for late starters. Healthcare is the single largest unbudgeted expense in retirement. Most people don't plan for it. The numbers say you'll need between $165,000 and $315,000 per person just for healthcare costs in retirement. That's not included in most retirement calculators. A 50-year-old who maxes their HSA for 15 years at 7% ends up with roughly $109,000 in a tax-free account specifically designed to cover the expense that wipes out most retirees' plans, funded entirely from pre-tax dollars. That's not a nice to have. For a late starter, that's a critical piece of the puzzle. And there's one more thing I want to show you before we get to the full stack. And this one is specifically for anyone who's thinking, I'll just work longer and figure it out. Here's what the last decade of compounding actually looks like, because most people underestimate it dramatically. Take someone who's 55 with $100,000 saved. They start investing $2,000 a month at 8%. By 60, they have $285,000. By 65, they have $597,000. By 67, $760,000. But here's the part that matters. In year 10 alone, their portfolio generates over $40,000 in investment returns. That's more than the $24,000 they contributed that year. The market is now working harder than they are. That crossover point, where the market outworks you, is where compounding becomes explosive. A 55-year-old with $100,000 in a plan isn't behind. They're sitting at the exact inflection point where the math starts doing the heavy lifting. If this is starting to click for you, if you're seeing for the first time that this is actually doable, hit subscribe right now. I put out videos specifically for people in this situation, and the next one on how to actually pick your first investments is something you don't want to miss. Drop a comment below and tell me your age and where you're starting from. Seriously. It helps me make better videos, and you'll be surprised how many people are in the exact same spot. Okay? Now here's the part you've been waiting for. The exact order to invest in 2026 if you're starting from zero. This is called the Late Starter Stack. 5 steps, in this exact order. Step 1. 401k up to the employer match, before anything else. If your employer matches 3% of your salary, you put in at least 3%. That match is a guaranteed 50 to 100% instant return on your money. Nothing beats it. Nothing. This is free money and most people leave it on the table. Step 2. HSA. If you're on a high deductible health plan, this is your next move. $4,300 for self-only coverage in 2026. $8,750 for a family. Invest it. Don't just let it sit in cash. Triple tax advantage. Use it or lose it only applies to FSAs, not HSAs. This money rolls over forever. Step 3. Roth IRA. You can contribute $7,500 a year if you're under 50. If you're 50 or older, that jumps to $8,600. The Roth is special for one specific reason that most people miss. Your contributions, not the earnings, but the actual dollars you put in, can be withdrawn at any time for any reason with no taxes and no penalties. That makes it an emergency fund and a retirement account at the same time. That's a massive deal for someone just getting started. Step 4. Max the full 401k. After the match and the Roth, go back and fill the rest of your 401k. If you're 50 to 59, that's $32,500 total in 2026. If you're 60 to 63, that's $35,750. The super catch-up window we talked about earlier. Step 5. Taxable brokerage. Any money beyond those limits goes here. No contribution cap. Maximum flexibility. And if your taxable income is under $49,450 as a single filer in 2026, your capital gains rate is 0%. That's right, 0. Here's the full picture. If you're 55 years old in 2026 and you go through this entire stack, 401k plus catch-up is $32,500. Roth IRA plus catch-up is $8,600. HSA is $4,300. That's $45,400 a year in completely tax-advantaged investing before you even touch a taxable account. And here's the thing about Social Security that ties all of this together. Because this is the one lever that acts like a guaranteed investment, and most people pull it at exactly the wrong time. Delaying Social Security from your full retirement age of 67 to age 70 adds 8% per year to your monthly benefit, permanently, for the rest of your life. If you claim at 62 instead of 70, you get about 40% less every single month, forever. The maximum benefit in 2026 is $5,181 a month at 70 versus $2,969 at 62. That's a $2,212 monthly difference. If you live to 85, that decision is worth $66,000 in extra lifetime income. If you live to 90, it's $137,000. For someone starting from zero at 50 with limited savings, delaying Social Security is the equivalent of an 8% guaranteed, inflation-adjusted return on an asset you already own. No stock can promise that. No bond comes close. So here's where we are. You started this video thinking you were too late. Let me show you what we just covered. Being behind is statistically normal. 1 in 5 people over 50 have zero saved. The super catch-up window at ages 60 to 63 can generate $220,000 from zero in 5 years, using contribution limits that already exist. Every $400 a month in savings buys you roughly 5 years of freedom on your timeline. Time beats amount. $50 a week started today beats $100 a week started 5 years from now. Your 40s and 50s are your peak earning years, and a 40% savings rate on a median income builds $777,000 in 15 years with no side hustle. The HSA is a triple tax-advantaged account that covers the expense that destroys most retirement plans. The final decade of compounding is explosive. The market will eventually outwork you, and delaying Social Security is an 8% guaranteed annual return on money you already earned. The reality here is better than you expected when you clicked this video. You're not too late. You're not broken. You just needed the right math in front of you. Start with step 1 of the late starter stack this week. Just step 1. Match your employer contribution if you have a 401k. If you don't, open a Roth IRA. You can start with as little as $5 on most platforms. The first move is the hardest. Everything after that is momentum. If this video changed how you see your situation, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And watch the next video on picking your first actual investments, because knowing where to put the money is only half the equation. The other half is knowing what to put in it.